Every morning, millions of seniors wake up believing they're doing something right for their health, cracking eggs into a hot pan, listening to the sizzle, trusting a habit they've repeated for decades, never realizing that one small decision in that moment may quietly be fueling inflammation, accelerating aging, and undermining the very health they're trying to protect. Eggs are often praised as one of nature's most perfect foods, and for good reason, because they contain nearly every nutrient required to sustain human life, including high-quality protein, essential fatty acids, and compounds critical for brain and muscle function. But the truth that rarely gets discussed is that the way an egg is cooked can completely change how the body responds to it, especially in aging adults whose metabolism, digestion, and inflammatory defenses are no longer as resilient as they once were. When eggs are dropped into vegetable oils like soybean, corn, or canola oil, something dangerous happens at a molecular level. Because these oils are packed with omega-6 fatty acids that oxidize rapidly under heat, producing lipid peroxides and aldehydes that the body recognizes as toxic stressors, triggering inflammatory cascades that don't cause immediate pain but slowly damage blood vessels, impair insulin signaling, and accelerate cellular aging over time. Research has shown that oxidized fats increase oxidative stress markers in the bloodstream. And for seniors, this matters profoundly because oxidative stress is strongly linked to cardiovascular disease, cognitive decline, and muscle wasting, three of the biggest threats to independence in later life. The egg itself becomes a victim in this process too, because high heat doesn't just damage oils, it alters the protein structure of the egg, making amino acids harder to digest and increasing the formation of advanced glycation end products, compounds that stiffen tissues, impair circulation, and are strongly associated with aging-related diseases. What makes this even more alarming is that many people believe overcooking eggs is safer, assuming firm yolks and browned edges mean fewer bacteria and more protection, when in reality, excessive heat destroys some of the most powerful nutrients eggs contain, including choline, a compound essential for memory, nerve signaling, and brain volume maintenance, all of which naturally decline with age. Studies have shown that choline deficiency is common in older adults and is associated with increased risk of cognitive impairment. Yet overcooking eggs quietly strips this nutrient away before it ever reaches the brain. The same heat that hardens yolks also degrades lutein and zeaxanthin, two antioxidants concentrated in egg yolks that accumulate in the retina and protect the eyes from oxidative damage, cataracts, and age-related macular degeneration, meaning that a cooking habit repeated every day may slowly be stealing vision while pretending to nourish it. And then there's the issue of chronic inflammation, which doesn't announce itself loudly, but whispers through the body year after year, weakening immune defenses, slowing muscle repair, and increasing vulnerability to disease, because inflammatory signaling becomes harder to shut off with age, making seniors far more sensitive to dietary stressors than younger adults. Eggs cooked gently, with minimal heat and stable fats, send a completely different signal to the body, preserving their nutrient integrity and allowing their proteins to be efficiently used for muscle maintenance, which is critical because after the age of 60, muscle loss accelerates rapidly, increasing fall risk, frailty, and loss of independence. The leucine found in eggs is one of the most powerful amino acids for stimulating muscle protein synthesis, but only when the protein structure remains intact enough for the body to absorb and utilize it effectively. Gentle cooking methods like poaching or soft boiling protect these amino acids, while aggressive frying degrades them, turning a muscle-supporting food into a metabolic burden. There is also a hormonal component that rarely gets mentioned because excessive heat and oxidized fats increase cortisol signaling in the body. The stress hormone that breaks down muscle tissue elevates blood sugar and suppresses immune function, creating a biological environment that works directly against healthy aging. Seniors often wonder why they feel weaker, more inflamed, or more fatigued despite eating what they believe are healthy foods, never suspecting that preparation methods are silently sabotaging their efforts. Even cholesterol metabolism is affected, because oxidized cholesterol particles formed during high-heat cooking are far more damaging to arteries than dietary cholesterol itself, contributing to plaque formation and endothelial dysfunction, which is why modern research increasingly focuses on oxidation rather than cholesterol quantity alone. The tragedy is that eggs, when prepared correctly, can do the exact opposite, supporting arterial flexibility, brain signaling, and long-term metabolic stability. But when cooked improperly, they become a daily source of low-grade damage that compounds over years. This isn't about fear, it's about awareness, because the difference between nourishment and harm can be as simple as lowering the heat, choosing a stable cooking fat, and allowing the yolk to remain softly set rather than aggressively hardened. For seniors whose bodies are no longer equipped to recover quickly from repeated oxidative insults, these small choices add up faster than most people realize, shaping how well they move, think, and see in the years ahead. Every egg carries potential either to fuel resilience or accelerate decline, and the science is clear that preparation determines which path the body takes. The question isn't whether eggs are healthy, but whether they're being respected enough to deliver the benefits they were designed to provide. Because longevity isn't built on dramatic changes, it's built on the quiet decisions repeated every single day, often without a second thought, until one day the results become impossible to ignore. For decades, millions of people have been told the same lie over and over again, that the yellow center of an egg is dangerous, that the yolk is something to fear, something to discard, something standing between them and good health. And nowhere has this message caused more quiet damage than among seniors, who were convinced that throwing away the yolk was a smart, responsible choice, never realizing they were discarding the very nutrients their aging brains, eyes, and muscles needed most to survive and thrive. The egg yolk is not a nutritional flaw. It is the command center of the egg, the place where nearly all of its life-sustaining compounds are stored. And when it is removed, what remains is little more than a stripped-down protein source, missing the biological signals that tell the body how to use that protein effectively. One of the most critical of these signals is choline, a nutrient so essential that it is required to build acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter responsible for memory formation, learning, and muscle contraction. Yet studies consistently show that the majority of older adults fail to meet even the minimum recommended intake. Low choline levels have been linked to accelerated cognitive decline, reduced brain volume, and increased risk of dementia. And the cruel irony is that egg yolks are one of the richest and most bioavailable sources of choline in the human diet, meaning that every yolk thrown away is a missed opportunity to protect the aging brain. As the brain ages, its ability to repair neural connections weakens, and without sufficient choline, the signals that allow thoughts to form, memories to consolidate, and muscles to respond begin to falter, often years before symptoms become obvious. But choline is only the beginning, because the egg yolk is also packed with fat-soluble vitamins that cannot be absorbed from food without dietary fat, including vitamins A, D, E, and K, all of which play essential roles in immune regulation, bone integrity, vision, and cardiovascular health. Seniors who eat only egg whites may consume protein, but they lose the fat matrix required to absorb these critical micronutrients, leaving their bodies undernourished despite adequate calorie intake, a state researchers increasingly describe as hidden malnutrition. Vision loss is one of the greatest fears of aging, yet few people realize that egg yolks contain lutein and zeaxanthin, two powerful antioxidants that accumulate directly in the retina, acting like internal sunglasses that filter damaging blue light and neutralize oxidative stress. Large population studies have shown that higher dietary intake of lutein and zeaxanthin is associated with a reduced risk of cataracts and age-related macular degeneration, the leading cause of blindness in older adults, and egg yolks provide these compounds in a form far more absorbable than leafy greens alone, because the natural fats in the yolk dramatically increase their uptake into the bloodstream. When seniors avoid yolks, they are unknowingly depriving their eyes of one of the most effective nutritional defenses available, often while spending hours each day exposed to artificial light and screens that accelerate retinal damage. Then there is the issue of muscle loss, a silent process that accelerates after the age of 60 and robs people of strength, balance, and independence. Protein alone is not enough to stop this decline, because muscle synthesis depends on hormonal and nutrient signals that come from whole foods, not isolated components. Egg yolks contain cholesterol, a molecule that has been unfairly demonized but is absolutely essential for the production of hormones like testosterone, estrogen, and vitamin D, all of which influence muscle maintenance, bone density, and metabolic health. Research now shows that dietary cholesterol has a minimal impact on blood cholesterol for most people. While cholesterol deficiency can impair hormone production, weaken cell membranes, and reduce the body's ability to recover from physical stress. Removing yolks strips away this critical building block, leaving muscles without the hormonal support they need to respond to protein intake, no matter how much egg white is consumed. The fear of cholesterol pushed an entire generation toward low-fat diets, and what followed was not improved health, but rising rates of insulin resistance, cognitive decline, and inflammatory disease, outcomes now understood to be driven more by processed carbohydrates and oxidized fats than by whole food cholesterol. The egg yolk also contains phospholipids that help regulate inflammation and support liver health, compounds that assist in transporting fats through the bloodstream safely rather than allowing them to accumulate where they cause damage. Without these phospholipids, fat metabolism becomes less efficient, increasing the risk of fatty liver and metabolic dysfunction, conditions that disproportionately affect older adults. Even the immune system depends on yolk-derived nutrients because vitamins A and D play direct roles in immune cell differentiation and pathogen defense, and deficiencies in these vitamins are associated with increased infection risk and slower recovery times in seniors. What makes the rejection of egg yolks particularly tragic is that modern science has repeatedly shown that whole eggs improve markers of metabolic health, including HDL function and insulin sensitivity, especially when consumed as part of a balanced diet, yet outdated fear continues to shape daily habits. Seniors who eat only egg whites often report persistent fatigue, brain fog, dry eyes, and slow recovery from illness, symptoms frequently attributed to aging itself rather than the silent nutrient gaps created by years of yolk avoidance. The body does not recognize good intentions, it only responds to biochemical inputs, and when those inputs are incomplete, decline accelerates quietly and steadily. Whole eggs provide a unique nutrient synergy that cannot be replicated by supplements or isolated proteins because nature packages nutrients together for a reason, ensuring they work in harmony rather than in isolation. The yolk tells the body how to use the protein in the white, how to direct amino acids toward repair instead of storage, how to convert food into function rather than inflammation. When that signal is missing, the system becomes less efficient, more stressed, and more vulnerable to disease. Aging is inevitable, but accelerated decline is not. And the difference often lies in the smallest daily choices, repeated without much thought, until their consequences become unavoidable. The egg yolk is not the enemy of longevity. It is one of its quiet allies, and discarding it out of fear may be one of the most damaging nutritional mistakes a senior can make, not because it causes immediate harm, but because it slowly removes the very tools the body relies on to stay sharp, strong, and resilient over time. Most people believe that health is determined by how much of a food they eat, counting portions, counting calories, counting grams of protein, never realizing that the body does not respond to quantity in isolation. It responds to context, quality, and biological signals, and nowhere is this more evident than with eggs, a food that can either stabilize blood sugar and protect the aging brain, or quietly push the body toward inflammation and metabolic chaos, depending entirely on what it is eaten with and where it comes from. For seniors, this distinction becomes critical because aging changes how the body processes glucose, fats, and proteins, making it far less forgiving of poor food combinations than it once was. When eggs are paired with refined carbohydrates like white bread, pancakes, pastries, or sweetened breakfast foods, the body experiences a rapid surge in blood glucose followed by a spike in insulin, a hormone whose effectiveness naturally declines with age. Research shows that older adults are significantly more prone to post-meal blood sugar spikes even when fasting glucose appears normal, and these repeated spikes quietly damage blood vessels, accelerate nerve degeneration, and increase the risk of cognitive decline. What makes this combination especially dangerous is that protein alone cannot prevent this response because refined carbohydrates digest so quickly that they overwhelm the stabilizing effects of fat and protein, forcing the pancreas to release large amounts of insulin just to regain control. Over time, this pattern trains the body to become insulin resistant, a condition now strongly linked not only to type 2 diabetes but also to Alzheimer's disease, which some researchers increasingly refer to as type 3 diabetes, due to its close relationship with impaired glucose metabolism in the brain. Seniors who eat eggs with refined carbs may feel full in the moment, but hours later experience fatigue, brain fog, and cravings, symptoms often mistaken for aging rather than the metabolic roller coaster created at breakfast. In contrast, when eggs are paired with fiber-rich vegetables, healthy fats, and micronutrient-dense foods, the digestive process slows, glucose enters the bloodstream gradually, and insulin remains stable, creating a metabolic environment that protects blood vessels, preserves nerve function, and supports sustained energy. Fiber acts as a biological brake, feeding beneficial gut bacteria that produce short-chain fatty acids known to reduce inflammation and improve insulin sensitivity, while healthy fats signal satiety hormones that tell the brain the body is nourished and safe. This is not a matter of preference, it is physiology, because the aging body depends on stable signals to function efficiently, and chaotic blood sugar undermines nearly every system involved in longevity. But pairing is only half of the equation, because the quality of the egg itself determines whether it delivers nourishment or hidden stress. Factory-farmed eggs come from hens raised in confined environments, fed grain-heavy diets that alter the fatty acid profile of the egg, increasing omega-6 content while reducing omega-3s, a shift that promotes inflammation when consumed regularly. Chronic inflammation is now recognized as a root driver of nearly every major age-related disease, from heart disease to arthritis to neurodegeneration, and dietary omega-6 excess plays a measurable role in sustaining this inflammatory state. Pasture-raised eggs, by contrast, contain higher levels of omega-3 fatty acids, fat-soluble vitamins, and antioxidants, nutrients that actively counter oxidative stress and support cellular repair. Studies have shown that omega-3 intake improves endothelial function, reduces triglycerides, and supports brain structure, benefits that are especially important for seniors whose tissues repair more slowly than in youth. The difference between these eggs is not subtle at the biochemical level, even if it looks identical on the plate. Seniors often believe that an egg is an egg, but the body recognizes the difference immediately, responding either with inflammatory signaling or with cellular nourishment. Quality eggs also contain higher levels of vitamin D, a nutrient essential for bone density, immune defense, and muscle function. Yet deficiencies are widespread among older adults and strongly associated with falls, fractures, and weakened immunity. Eating low-quality eggs while assuming nutritional adequacy creates a false sense of security because calories are consumed, but micronutrient needs remain unmet. Quantity cannot compensate for missing signals, no matter how many eggs are eaten. This is why some seniors report eating protein-rich diets yet continue to lose muscle because without sufficient micronutrients, hormonal support, and anti-inflammatory fats, protein cannot be effectively used for repair. Even the gut microbiome plays a role, because poor food combinations and low-quality fats alter gut bacteria in ways that increase intestinal permeability, allowing inflammatory compounds to enter the bloodstream, a phenomenon commonly referred to as leaky gut. This low-grade inflammation taxes the immune system and diverts energy away from repair and regeneration, leaving the body more vulnerable to illness and fatigue. When eggs are paired thoughtfully and sourced responsibly, they become a stabilizing force, supporting gut integrity, feeding beneficial microbes, and reinforcing the body's natural resilience. The tragedy is that these effects are cumulative, not immediate, meaning damage builds quietly over years while symptoms remain vague and easy to dismiss. Seniors often look for dramatic interventions, supplements, or medications to restore vitality, unaware that daily food context exerts a far more powerful influence over long-term health. The body does not reset at each meal. It carries forward the biochemical consequences of every choice, layering them day after day until they shape how well a person thinks, moves, and heals. Eating eggs with refined carbohydrates and poor quality fats is not a neutral act. It is a repeated metabolic stress test that the aging body eventually fails, while eating high-quality eggs paired with fiber, healthy fats, and micronutrients is a daily investment in stability, clarity, and strength. Longevity is not built by eating more. It is built by eating smarter, respecting how foods interact, and understanding that the body is a system, not a calculator. For seniors, the difference between decline and resilience is often hidden in plain sight, sitting quietly on the breakfast plate, waiting to either support the body's remaining years or slowly erode them, not through dramatic harm, but through subtle, repeated signals that accumulate until one day the cost becomes undeniable.